And I just actually am reminded again about what Jennifer talked about, because it ties into some of the things that we do here normally at Sunday Assembly, so much of how happiness is a process, and it's something that you have to learn and figure out how it works, and you can get support from others on how that can happen too. But we know that you usually don't just achieve happiness and you're there. You have to put effort towards it, and you have to figure out how to make it work. So this is a portion where we have somebody come up and tell us what they're doing to figure out how to be happy and how to live better. So I'd like to introduce Lucille, because Lucille is doing her best.
Hey everyone, my name is Lucille. I'm finishing up my biology degree at Portland State right now and getting ready to go into reproductive health as a nurse midwife. My dad over there is a counselor for hospice, and my mom's a microbiologist. So the family joke is that I'll help people into this world, Dad helps them on their way out, and Mom keeps everyone healthy and on their feet in between. She also keeps us all on our toes, but that's a different story. Love you, Mom. When I started college, I decided to try to squeeze my 4-year degree into 3 years so that I could use my last year to study abroad. Now you may be thinking that this is the story of how I caught a one-way flight to Australia and lived as a traveling musician for a year, or shipped off to teach English to students in Senegal. And I'm not going to lie, that would be pretty cool. More power to you if you want to go do that. But that's not my story, because something didn't go according to plan. I fell in love. And 2 years later, we were more in love than when we started. And of course, studying abroad was still an option. But I decided that love was its own adventure, and I wanted to stick around to see where that led. So I wrote down the reasons that I wanted to go abroad. To explore different cultures, to have enriching new experiences, to make a meaningful impact in the world. And I started wondering, what would it look like if I took a year to try to do all of those things in Portland? Now this is not the story of my Portland gap year, because I haven't done that yet. I'm still in classes full time and counting down the days until my gap year begins. Maybe I'll have to come do this again next year so I can let you all know how it goes. Today, this is the story of how preparing for a gap year in Portland opened my eyes to the possibilities hiding in plain sight all around me. So I want to ask you, what would you do with a year? If you had 1 year in the city you already lived in, to try to squeeze in as many amazing experiences as you could, where would you start? I know that I'll need to boost my grad school application, which essentially means that I have a year to prove I'm passionate about the things I'm passionate about. I can handle that. So what else? Where'd I go? What are the things that I've always wanted to find time for, that never quite make it to the top of the to-do list? The desires that are simmering in the background, waiting for the right opportunity. And all of a sudden, ideas started flowing. I want to learn Spanish. I want to volunteer. I want to meet new people. Explore new ways of looking at the world. Try new activities. I want to build community. I want to dance. And so I started doing the research. Where could I volunteer? Where could I meet new people? What activities could I explore? I joined meetup.com and started going to a different group every week. It took time, but one by one, I started finding opportunities that lit up that fire within me. And here's the curveball in all this. When you find something that you're really excited about, Sunday Assembly, you don't want to wait until all of your other responsibilities fall away. You want to get involved, and the sooner the better. So I haven't started my gap year yet. I'm still in school and still doing all the things I've been doing for the last 3 years. And now I'm also doing things I couldn't have imagined I'd be able to find time for. Time is a limited resource, and I knew that my grades would probably drop as I had less and less time for studying. I accepted that, and I decided it was worthwhile. To my surprise, that happiness and encouragement that I felt led into the classroom, and my grades actually improved, so go figure. I wanted to have an adventure in my gap year. And to my surprise, I've already had more of an adventure than I bargained for before my gap year even started. Now I'm about to get philosophical, so bear with me. I think that we spend a lot of our lives putting out fires. We look at our lives and say, what needs aren't being met, and what can I do to meet them? And I think that's a survival skill. There's a reason that we do that, so I'm not going to tell you to stop doing that. But I do think that it's important that we not let ourselves get stuck there. It's important that we also come at our lives from the other direction and say, when do I feel most inspired? Where do I feel like I belong? When do I feel excited? To remember, in between putting out all those fires, to ask what you really want to be doing with those moments that happen when you're too busy doing everything else. So I'd like to leave you with a challenge. You probably didn't know you were going to get homework today, but I've got an assignment for you. I challenge you to take those things that are hovering at the bottom of your to-do list. You know what they are. Those things that you look at and say, maybe someday, if only I had more time. Maybe it's an art class or a family camping trip. Maybe it's a bigger positive life change that takes more work, like finally making it in to see a counselor, quitting smoking, or taking the leap of a midlife career change. Whatever it is for you, I challenge you to take those things and look at them, really look at them, write them down, and examine them from a practical perspective. Figure out what the first steps you need to take would be to make those a reality. And then I challenge you to take them. And it may be that you really don't have time to take on anything new right now, and that's okay. The need to prioritize is part of being human. But I suspect that if you actually looked at them thoroughly, figured out what those first steps would be, and took just that first step, you might find that you have more time than you think you do. Thank you.